In just over 2 weeks' time, the West will go to the polls to vote for the first ever police and crime commissioners. In his second look at how the change will affect policing in the region, our Home Affairs correspondent Steve Brodie has been to Wiltshire.
The county of chalk and cheese, some say one of the most beautiful in the West, and the least known as tourists thunder down to Devon and Cornwall. For such a quiet part of the world, it has a police force with its proud motto of the first and the best. Founded in November 1839, it was the first county force outside London. The constabulary, as it was once known, has had its moments, but never in the national headlines, until in 1985 saw what became known as the infamous Battle of the Beanfield. The traditional peace convoy, made up of hippies attempting to get to Stonehenge for the solstice, clashed with police officers, including many from the Met. Travellers later successfully sued the police for damages. Historically, Wiltshire has enjoyed being one of the safest places in the country in which to live. But there are crime hotspots, and the newly elected PCC will have to live with the cuts imposed upon the force by the government. The Police and Crime Commissioner is faced with spending cuts of £15 million and staff cuts of 270 by 2015, including the loss of 120 police officer posts. The PCCs are replacing the existing police authorities, and they will have the powers to appoint or fire chief constables, set the force budget and the local policing priorities. But they can't tell the police who to arrest.
Let's be very clear. The chief constable manages the force. He can't, the PCC cannot in any way interfere with any investigation. He cannot tell the chief constable where to send resources. He can't devote resources to a particular incident in his patch. He can't tell the chief constable in extremis who to arrest or who not to arrest.
For rank and file police officers, there's a growing concern that the introduction of PCCs will lead to greater privatisation of the police force.
There will be pressure on the PCC to save money, and nationally we're seeing the move towards privatising policing functions. The Federation are very strongly against that. We believe that the Office of Constable is the bedrock of British policing, and we will do what we can to maintain that position.
A vote to decide who will oversee.
Despite the government's advertising campaign about the election for PCCs on November the 15th, the majority of the public I asked in Devizes had very little idea about either the poll or what it was about.
No, I didn't know anything about it.
You've never heard of police crime commissioners?
I've heard of them, but I didn't really know anything about them taking over.
It's a good idea, I think, for people to choose, to be able to choose who they want.
Only I've heard that they are going to be elected, but I don't know anything more.
Do you know anything about them?
No, nothing at all.
The PCCs will wield considerable power, but there will be a safeguard in the form of what's called a police and crime panel.
They have been really put into being to hold the PCC to account. Not the Chief Constable, the Police and Crime Commissioner. The Police and Crime Commissioner then holds the Chief Constable to account. The panel is the watchdog, really, the safeguard that the PCC can't run riot on his or her own.
So, the oldest police force in the country faces yet another change, perhaps the most challenging in its long history. Steve Brodie, BBC Points West, Wiltshire.